So if you're cycling through these women, you're basically on your own. And the women are come and go. You have no consistency and what I call no witness to your life. That stuff was a certain period in my life. And in many ways, I wasn't a different person, but like when I even read some of my stuff or see video, I'm like, oh my God, who's that guy? I don't even recognize it. I think every guy should meet tons of girls so that he can skip on a lot of lousy ones and then decide what he wants. And when he sees someone who's really a good match, go for it. You hear guys saying they're gonna hold a torch for eternity. They're never gonna settle down. They're gonna be bachelors. And I find like that's kind of why partly why I did this interview, and also why I don't think there's enough mature voices in the pickup scene.
Hey guys, Chris Murphy here. I've got a legend with me today, Mr. Paul Janka. Paul was one of the guys who, when I first started off, was a big name on the scene, particularly in day games, so meeting women during the daytime. But he's also a world-known leading dating coach. He's got a great reputation as getting results. He's got some good books, Beyond the Digits, great product. Episode on Dr. Phil.
All right,
the highlights on your career, I guess.
That was fun,
But now he's in London, and I don't think he's been interviewed or caught up with anyone, particularly more on the dating side of things. For
a long time. So this is a bit of an interesting or unique opportunity. I'm 40, and I was married this summer. Here's the hardware.
Yeah, congratulations.
So, thank you. To your audience, I'm totally out of the pickup, dating, chasing girls scene. I have a podcast now where we talk about the decade of the 30s for men between the age of 30 and 40 with another guy. I do it with a guy named Peter, and that's my focus, like the challenges that men face. So we talk about relationships and women and getting married and stuff, and how that, as you get more serious, how that changes the shape of your life. But, and I still have a business teaching guys and selling products to guys because the stuff I made I think is still good, it's timeless, but I'm not out there on this. I haven't picked up a girl in like 6 or 7 years. So it's a long time. Some of you guys probably were teenagers when I got out of the game, if you're watching now. Well, we were talking about something interesting. We covered a lot of stuff before the camera rolled. Unfortunately, it was really juicy. But two things I want to come back to in a minute, I want to sort of bookmark, is British culture and how judgmental I feel it is in terms of pickup and your experience of that. And then B, why so many guys in London, English guys who do pickup, steer clear of English women, and instead, and I know some of the obvious reasons, but instead they pick up the Eastern European girls, the tourists that are, in many ways they're easier targets, but I also want to talk about what it is particularly about English women that men here find either off-putting and or difficult. So we're talking about your friend who thought, oh, Paul Janka's a jerk. So that's what it was.
Yeah,
so
I thought I'd mention him as well. You said you were a scumbag, to quote his words.
It's what?
You said you were a scumbag.
Scumbag. So, well, how does he go about getting girls?
Well, he was actually involved in Boston in the community. But I think guys like you who, I think there's some guys who are I think they judge you straight away, don't they? It's like if you typed your name in Google now and seen your YouTube, straight away you'd be like, who's a woman would see, and they'd be like, who, and they wouldn't even give you time.
Right.
But it's probably I've seen be it towards the end of, say, the Dr. Phil show, or if you give you 20 minutes in a room and you can see that you're obviously making guys more confident, and at the end of the day, it's just your opinion, how you see the world. You realize that you're probably not as bad a guy as you think so. And now, like I said, when I said to my friend, Paul's in London, he's happily married, he was like, oh, he seems like a decent guy then. So I think...
That's so interesting for a guy. Yeah. I was talking to my mom about feminism last night. In a way, I'm a closet feminist because I do think women should have a lot of equality in many regards. But your friend sounds like God, I have so much on my mind, so I don't want to lose my train of thought. That I'm only a safe guy and I'm only okay if like, in the end I get married. That's a funny trope or narrative, right? That men are dangerous when they're bachelors, but by virtue of getting married now they're like, oh, he's okay, he's a acceptable guy, he's like safe. That's weird, isn't it? I mean, I find that, why is your friend and why is society threatened by bachelors?
I think it's just probably certain aspects probably where people, maybe certain things you might have said that people took the wrong way? Because you obviously you went through a stage when you were.
I was hard hitting.
Yeah, you had multiple numbers and you were just inviting them back to your place, like left, right, and centre. So I think for some guys, maybe some guys get maybe a bit jealous.
Is it? I was going to say, is it jealousy?
Because there was this article I thought was interesting in the London Evening Standard. This guy was saying about James Bond being completely misogynistic. And you could just tell that from the words behind what he was writing that he was frustrated that he probably deep down, because a masculine man in an ideal world will want to have all the women. And that's why I think women test you on that. Like the shit test they say is like, what would you, if you had loads of money, what would you want? And it's like, they know that you would want loads of women and all this power. But guys just don't admit it. I think they always think of the feminine point of view, so they would talk as if like there's a woman in the room.
God, so we have the women talking, and we have a bunch of feminized guys. Well, it's very. Oh, here's the other thing that I found was interesting. I wanted to put on the camera. It's just that, you've got your thing here. You said you interviewed Yad and Sasha, and of course the RSD guys, and Jordan Harbinger at Art of Charm and RSD. I mean, there's a huge number of young men, age 20 to 40 or 25 to 40, who are on this journey of self-discovery, like trying to figure out how to navigate. And that's what my podcast is about too. And I just find it so interesting with technology now we can do it and put it up there. But like 30 years ago when I was growing up, there were so few voices. I mean, a couple guys wrote books, but and I was unaware of them. But now it's like, so basically what I'm saying is, it seems that there's a huge part of young men that feel that unheard or that this stuff hasn't been settled. No one's like, we have to learn this on our own. There's no societal narrative that we can say, oh, this is how we should live. We're like trying to figure this stuff on our own. It's so interesting that, and a lot's changed, right? Feminism and women's lib and women are the work, and they don't need men as much anymore, arguably in certain regards. So weird, we live in a weird social time.
I think what I related to you is just how you seem to distance yourself from everyone. I mean, you come across as a guy who literally seemed like you don't care. You know who you are. You've got your own opinion. Back in the day when you sort of made a name for yourself. Yeah. And I'm an introverted guy, and I went about this on my own. And a lot of guys who are sort of on these forums like, oh, I need to find a wingman, and I can't meet women. I just went out there like I'm sure you did.
Solo.
And tried to learn this on your own, yeah. And you were saying stuff on Beyond the Digits, like go into a Starbucks, speak to the barista, and all of this sort of stuff, and build your vibe. And there's nothing, you want to be, I always say to the guys, you want to be that guy like you are with your best friend, like all the time. And so when you just speak to the receptionist when you come in here, you don't need to have your friends around you all the time. So you need to, and the only person I think at the end of the day you can trust is you, because you meet so many people who come and go.
That's interesting. Yeah, I think what you're talking about is like this concept of being the mayor, to be socially lubricated so you can talk to anyone and be in the flow. And when you're like that and comfortable and charming and your mojo's up, yeah, of course women will find that attractive and it's easier. Do you have a set of questions? Because I have a lot of stuff I want to ask you actually. But I saw some prep notes over there. So.
Oh yeah, no, I've got some stuff I wanted to raise. I thought the nature of the interview, but the thing is, I got in there, guys, and it was like Paul was interviewing me.
Well, I'm an interviewer, so I mean, the one interesting thing I want to ask you is, now I just had a total blank on my mind. Well, why don't we address those two things that I asked initially? We can get them out of the way. And I'll tell the audience, before I moved here, I lived 9 years in New York City, and one of the nice things about New York City is I found it quite anonymous. And no one cared about what I did, really. In fact, if I was like outrageous with a girl on the street or walked into, once in a while if you're in a retail place and I was chatting up a girl too aggressively, that could cause problems. But I remember being asked to leave from my buddy and I from Barnes & Noble's because we were a big one in Union Square. We were just going from like table to table chatting up and the security guard clocked us. And I think partly because guys were running like boot camps in this place. But for the most part, you could do what you want, and no one gave a shit because they were so busy trying to make their buck or like get their movie made or their book published, whatever. New York's a city of hustlers. But I find here, and I've always been in a relationship in London, but I find here that like people are polite. No one talks on the subway, on the bus. I constantly feel like a slight social pressure of being judged myself. Like I didn't tap my card in fast enough today on the bus, and the bus driver was like, and I just think like there's definitely a right and a wrong way to do British protocol, and I feel like a guy like winging it, doing game and hustling, a lot of people will be like raising an eyebrow, and I kind of. Not that anyone gives a shit. If you're the thing about the power of having a lot of sex with different women is you're kind of at the top of the social pyramid. So when you said earlier, like I was so cocky and didn't give a shit on those interviews, I mean, I was crushing it. I was living the life. I mean, I had so many great, like, how could I care about anything else? In other words, anyone else raising their eyebrow or saying don't do it, I was like, yeah, if you saw what I have in my bed every night or whatever, it didn't compete. What they were saying mattered nothing at the time, and the lifestyle I was living was like it gave me such a sense of confidence and power. There was, I was saying to you earlier, there was reputational price to pay for that later on. That's partly why not only is my life so different now, but I've kind of wanted to distance myself from that.
So do you think that's why a lot of people probably aren't doing more sort of like how you were, where you were just openly out, look, I'm getting laid all the time, and
yeah, I guess so.
Everyone comes under the cover now. It's it's self-development. Including probably me, where it's saying like, look, it's about being this better guy. And I think
the problem, though, unfortunately, with that is it's harder to sell that. I mean, the reason we had a multi-million-dollar business is because guys could see how vocal I was, and that it was true, and then they wanted it, so they bought it. So it's harder. I mean, I've had the same problem when we try to transition our business under a more palatable brand, like self-development. Guys like, I don't need self-development. I want a hot chick in my bed. So in other words, yes, when you're loud and obnoxious like that, there is a cost later that there was in some regards, but at the same time, it gets men's attention who are in, well, look, you said you were a fan, like in a pain place. Yeah. And they're like, what is your story? And how did you find out? How did you find my stuff?
Well, I mean, he's just saying, I was just a good guy, your typical nice guy, and I was still watching your stuff. A couple of interesting points to mention on when I was watching your stuff as well. But yeah, I told you the guy who mentored me from Eddie. Yeah. So he straight away said like, Paul, he's getting results. The guys he learned from and the guys I probably learned from are the ones who are out there saying, I'm getting results, and they're the ones I recommend. And the stuff you can see that it works. But there's something about it. I don't know if it's just the fact, maybe just being in New York and an American, and it's all these other points, just your personality. But I think it was mainly that interview you did. I'll leave a link below those guys who want to check it out. But yeah, and then I thought like this guy's like he's standing, he's like standing up for true masculinity kind of thing. And he's not doing anything wrong. I think deep down, guys, they feel guilty when they're seeing like they go and get two girls' numbers, and they're like, maybe I should just focus on this one girl. And I mean, that's the sort of how I was.
See, I look at it differently. I think it's the woman. That's how I ended up getting married. Actually, yeah. I think it's the woman's job to hold our attention. I think the man naturally is going to go out and engage as many women as he can. And it's up to that one incredibly attractive woman, however you define attractive, physically, emotionally, financially, maybe, whatever it is, to be like, wow, this one's so great, I want to clear my schedule just for her. So I don't think the man should hinder himself. I think he should go out and meet as many. And then when a woman that's his match comes, he'll hopefully recognize, if he's ready, recognize it, and then he'll clear his schedule of the others. But he shouldn't self-limit and be like, oh no, I've got one. First of all, practically speaking, half those things don't go anywhere anyhow. Yeah. I mean, in a big city like this with the logistics, and she lives in West London, and you get that, I mean, a number itself doesn't really mean anything.
No, definitely. You've got to play that game, that numbers game, which
obviously. I mean, it's a fool who gets one number. I mean, you must see this with your students or whatever, like one-itis, right? You get one number, one girl, you have a nice interaction, and the guy's like sitting and thinking, oh man, but meanwhile, she's like in Ibiza with some dude.
But you never actually start getting good at this, or it starts clicking until you just get to that abundance sort of mentality where it's like, oh, this girl might text back, she might not.
Yeah, you have to get to that tipping point, then you start to see the promised land.
Yeah. But I thought it was a really good point is because you've obviously been and you've dated loads of women and you know you've met the right woman now, and it's a certain type of character you want to meet. And I can't help you enough. You introduced me to a really good book. You'd probably be amazed to see that I read this.
Which one?
Practical Female
it's a good one, isn't
for
it?
the Practical Man. And I recommend other guys, as soon as I tell people about this book, they read it and they love it. And I think it's amazing why guys won't read these sort of books, because it basically in that one book you can map so much and you can understand women on a different level, because it's all stuff in truth straight away. It's like, all right, I'll never argue with a woman again. That's what I sort of came to the conclusion when I put down that book. And you see all these guys on the tube who are arguing and frustrating because they just don't understand women, and they don't understand, they're bitter saying, oh, there's these gold diggers. But, the book clearly explains why women are like that.
Yeah. And in a way, it helps you be a more humane Playboy and understand their position. And also, that I heard something recently, I think it's really good. It said, he said, don't change her mind, change her mood.
Okay.
So in other words, like, if a girl's like, you're in a deadlock and she's been real difficult, like, be playful and tickle her and get her out of that frame. And that's what I find, at least. And then she'll forget that she was taking a stand on something. You can revisit it later in a more relaxed moment. But like, as you said, these guys, like, and I've been there too, like battling with a girl verbally, like in an argument, like clearly there's better ways than that, than headlong assault and stuff. So there's a lot and women, I think, men in many regards come from behind when it comes to relationships. So we have a lot to learn. So all this self-learning we're doing is good for us and good for the women that we end up dating or whatever. The other issue I wanted to ask you, so do you have anything to say about British culture and the judgmental nature of it?
Back to that.
Yeah, what do you think?
So it's the British culture, but like you're saying, your wife's from Yorkshire.
England,
yeah. Yorkshire.
Yeah, the north part of it. It's different, north and south is different.
She probably told you how it's different already, the city. But I think because it's so multicultural, because you've got so many people from all over. Like, I live near Whitechapel, and it's like you're in a complete... there was this documentary I was watching the other day. It's like, is Britain racist? And then it's saying, and then this one guy comes out saying, oh yeah, like Whitechapel's like completely different, isn't London, and they were slamming him as being racist. But it's kind of what comes to mind. I'm like, it's different from where I was
ethnically, it's from. Like Pakistani or black, exactly, or what is it?
And no one speaks English and all of this sort of side of things. So I walk to work every day.
The signs are in English though.
Yeah, Whitechapel, yeah. But I walk to work every day, and if you bumped into someone on the street, I wouldn't, because it's different cultures. Some cultures are like that, though, aren't they? They bump into you, they don't say sorry. And then I think as a while after it comes in London, you adjust to all these different cultures sort of mix into one. That's my interpretation, and I think if I was to go back to Warrington or Manchester, where I'm from, I would straight away, I would not apologise, and people would be apologising, they'd be speaking to you and you'd be like, what's going on?
Interesting.
But I found it's a big step out of your comfort zone to speak to people, and I think what's really good and a great, I don't feel we're giving you tips, but one of the mentors said, just always go in and say, hey, how are you doing today? To the barrister or the cashier, which I'm probably sure you do anyway, because you just come across as that kind of
I used to. Funny enough, I don't actually... When I was single and trying to cultivate all these leads, and I was much more, I don't know if outgoing is the right word, but I made a lot of effort to be like that guy socially, like really energetic and engaged, because my big thing was meeting new people, and now that switch is like turned off, because basically, if I were to have like a really engaging 2 minutes with a hot girl, then that's just problematic, because then my head starts, in other words, it's like, an attractive woman, I can't really, it's not going to go anywhere, and it's just going to be frustrating. Like, why do I have to, have a moment with a hot girl? So I'm polite, but like my general sociality or my general outgoingness has been like quite a bit dialed down as a result of, that's one, I don't know if it's a sad thing about marriage, but the reality is when you get married, this is at least what I've seen and what I've talked to my married friends about, first of all, your time is more limited, but also, especially when you have kids, but like basically I don't interact with the other gender that much. Isn't that crazy? Because why? And so that's kind of I remember when I was single, I used to think, oh, I'm not ever going to give up access to the other half. It's such a, but that's one of the prices. I mean, I know very few married men who have like a ton of hot female friends on the side.
Yeah.
It just doesn't really work.